Now, I'm going to continue to talk in and around what I was talking about last time. So here we have a situation where suddenly the uh, the inner self-satisfaction or the inner self-dissatisfaction in relation to cigarettes is not there. Now, if the whole reason why objects are attractive and the reason that objects are unattractive, if the reason is taken away, we can then start to see objects in their right lights. Now, while I am addicted to cigarettes, while I'm captivated to cigarettes, not because of the cigarettes, but because of the self-satisfaction I get from cigarettes, what happens is that I can try to say, well, okay, they're only cigarettes. I'll try to be objective here. Okay, I'm going to try and be objective. Okay, these are only cigarettes. I don't really care about them, not really. Or I might do the psychological thing. I'll try and see them. Well, all they are is just cigarettes. That is not going to work, because the fact of the matter is that while these cigarettes are a means to a feeling of self-satisfaction in me, I cannot help but be captivated by cigarettes. Now, the same example of, so let's say, for example, the people that are obstructing me from getting cigarettes, or the situation might be obstructing me from getting cigarettes. I will be resisting strongly that situation. I won't be able to help myself. If this situation is preventing me from getting cigarettes, then I become disturbed and unhappy. I have a self-dissatisfaction. And the thing is that this is what they mean by a binding desire. You see, liking something, wanting something is fine. Wanting a house, wanting a car is fine. But wanting a house to feel happy about myself as a person, that's a binding desire, because the idea of losing the house will greatly disturb me. And this is the whole point. Now, the magnificence of the Gita, as far as I'm concerned, is how it approaches this problem. It doesn't approach the problem of desires by trying to become detached, by by ignoring them. It doesn't solve the problem by satisfying them. It has an entirely different view. What happens is that if I can, and I'll go into the methodology later, but if the whole reason why what makes objects attractive or unattractive is taken away, then those objects become neutralized. They no longer have the power and the capacity to disturb you. Now, it doesn't matter what we think philosophically. While we depend upon objects, while we're in a relation of dependence on objects or people for our happiness, we are constantly disturbed. Like what Swamini Atmaprakashananda told me, which I've mentioned before. People and events do not hurt us. What they do is they're instrumental in revealing a hurt that's in us. The problem exists with us. Now, how is it possible, while I'm addicted to certain objects, while, for example, let's take the example of the common one, which is the need for approval and status. Anything that can give me approval and status, I'm going to be drawn towards if I desire approval and status. And what happens is Anybody that gives me approval, I will see them in a certain light. I won't be seeing them objectively. Because I need approval and they give me approval, I will exaggerate their importance to me. Oh, they're just such wonderful people. I love them. Of course you love them. Because what they're doing is they're giving you, they are giving you the sought after approval. What about the people who don't give you the approval? What about the people who put you down or don't like you or whatever? You will have an aversion for them because they don't. So, but we never see people as they are. We are only seeing them in reference to our desires. And when our whole life is built around this, any kind of addiction, and there are many addictions in our culture. There's addiction for status, there's the addiction for approval, there's the addiction to be perfect, there's the addiction to be young and good looking, to be highly attractive. All of these things are addictions, and they create a tremendous disturbance, because while I'm caught up and captivated by pursuing certain objects, approval from other people, blah, 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 attaining a certain status, all of these things, while my whole life is built around these types of things, I'm constantly experiencing fear, I'm constantly experiencing frustration and resistance, and my whole life, the way I'm living my life is completely built around and determined by this. Now, in Vedanta, we don't try and change ourselves because it's considered that's not necessary. So we're not trying to not desire, but what we're trying to do is to become free. Now, the whole point of having a relative freedom is that when the reason for the desire, for the attractiveness of certain things and the unattractiveness of certain other things and the indifference to other things is taken away, we live in a different world because we're no longer projecting subjective values in it. We're not living in our world. We're not enclosed in our little private world. We're actually seeing what is. Seeing what is and living in the real world is impossible when we're under the sway of binding desires. And this is why it's so important that these desires that determine us, that we have no freedom about. Like if I am bound by wanting approval, when people disapprove, I am going to be upset. That is just a rule. Now, I can't say to myself, okay, I'm not gonna seek approval. That doesn't work, because the fact of the matter is, the truth is, you find approval incredibly attractive. Now, here's the thing. When we take away the reason of the things that we desire, when we take away the reason that makes cigarettes, approval, power, status so important, which is this feeling of inner self-satisfaction, if we could just simply turn that off, our whole perception of the world is transformed, because we see things as they are. We're not projecting onto them values of, oh, they're magnificent because they're going to get me this inner self-satisfaction, or they cease to be terrible because they're no longer instrumental in bringing about an inner self-dissatisfaction. Now, this is the whole purpose. This is what the way of life that we are taught within the Bhagavad Gita is to be able to neutralize desires not by dealing with the desires themselves, but by turning off the inner self-gratification or inner self-dissatisfaction, so that the desires have no meaning as such.